But the other thing I want to, so that's number one, it's great to see people actually supporting. And this is the early church in dark times, when you actually read it, it actually used to meet daily in the houses. So I'm just going to quickly just jump you kind of through a bit of a quick little scriptures here and there, you know, not really much other than prophetic insight and just showing you a few little things. So when you read Acts, understand that this was written in a time when basically for you to run spiritual groups and meet in homes and run a church other than that was licensed by the Roman government, which is where China is already at today, and where I have no doubt the Western world will start moving towards, and effectively have already done that through this little pandemic thing or whatever, or this flu or whatever else they're going on about, to basically bring about more control and more regulation. So in that kind of dark age, which they're experiencing, where they had Roman government saying you can only kind of worship, you know, a god or run a religion, we're okay with you doing it, but you just got to make sure you acknowledge that the state comes first and then your religion comes second. Now, this is the very reason, by the way, why most of these guys end up getting killed and martyred and basically getting arrested and all kinds of stuff. And notice what they did there. It says they actually continued steadfastly in the apostles' doctrine and fellowship, and they continuing daily with one accord, breaking bread from house to house, with gladness and singleness of heart, praising God, having favour of all the people. And the Lord adding daily to the church those that we saved. In other words, why were people getting transformed, and why were people adding to the church? Not because they were basically running some big building and had some fancy clothes and were carrying on like some, you know, nitwits like you see today, but they basically were meeting together in a time when they knew they were strangers on this earth. They knew that they kind of were seen as different and seen as troublemakers and conspiracy theorists and whatever else they were called, but they also knew that they were there to do exactly what they said here: to save yourself from this untoward, unruly, disgraceful generation. In other words, these people who are living in this kind of dark prison realm and this very low evolved way of thinking out of fear-based to actually control you. And they saw themselves as being a light there. And that not only were they to live separate from it, but they were, even despite the fact that they may not be treated that well, and they may be, you know, awfully treated, in fact, as many of them were, they were still to show the love of Christ and still to do that. But to do that in the real world, when you've got daily horrible people around doing stuff to you and then shifting your stuff, to actually shift your own karma and shift your stuff to be able to be clear of the power of people to do that, but also to be supported as you're going through that shifting, they really required support and help. So it says they were learning daily. In fact, these people weren't just turning up once a week to catch up in a bit of a matter and some teaching. They were meeting daily. They were eating together. They were praying together. They even were believing together with all things in common. In other words, they started working as a collective. They started joining forces together. They said, hey, we're better united than we are kind of doing our own little thing, trying to deal with this Roman government who think it's kind of fair to take you and nail you to crosses, which like they did to Christ. Understand they were living in a time where if you upset the authorities, it wasn't just a case of you getting quarantined and put in a 5-star hotel where you may not get quite as good food as you would get otherwise, as you're dealing with Australia today, but you could actually end up being imprisoned in some very dark, dingy room that you had no idea when you'd get out. And you could and although Roman citizens had some kind of rights, non-Roman citizens didn't really have that right. And then, of course, in the worst case scenario, you might actually end up being nailed to a cross and going through a very torturing death and getting flogged with a whip. So for them to actually do what they were doing wasn't exactly like, you know, a walk in the park. So that's why, and although we may not be experiencing to that quite extent today, rest assured, in some parts of the world it does happen that way. And I think some parts of the Western world, you'll start to see it go that way. And if not physically, it's certainly already there spiritually happening at some level. So this is why the church was so important, to get together and break bread and connect from a deeper level and support each other. You know, people like Sam, where she's now made some bold decisions to do certain things with her family and take some steps, and no doubt will require some support during the transition. Miko's the same. And then I'm sure there's others here as well. And then there's the neighbors and friends. And once that level of love and connection and companionship and genuine support comes in, that's what adds people to the church. That's why, by the way, it's so important to have someone like Steve Plummer and people like Grace and others stepping up, because what it actually says in Ephesians 4 is that Christ gave us apostles, prophets, and pastors, evangelists, and teachers. And he did this basically, it says, to build the church, to perfect the saints, and bring everyone together. Once upon a time, the church was a place of great support, great spiritual evolution, and was a place of ascension. So all of these people, as part of his church, were able to ascend, leave this universe, and be one with the Father in heaven, and not have to keep reincarnating back and not basically be here anymore. So, but what, of course, Christ recognized was that until this time comes and everyone's in perfect unity in the millennial or golden age, which is still obviously coming into, there's a requirement to have these different giftings working. And when you go somewhere else in Ephesians, it says that these two are the foundation. So the best way to think of them in a modern day language, they're kind of like the entrepreneurs and the visionaries. And these ones here are like the marketers or salespeople. And these ones here are like the support staff, the customer care and the admin. And these ones are kind of like the managers, the teachers, the ones who build the systems. So the point was, Christ was very aware that to build a successful kind of work, you have to follow a divine order and everyone had to play their right part. So you basically had, which is kind of how this work started. That's why this work is really strong at the moment, because it started with that. And that's definitely, for example, who Grace and I are. I know that basically that's my path. And I've finally embraced it and I love it, a prophet. And prophets, by the way, are the ones who make people uncomfortable. They're the ones who come deliberately to stir up the hornet's nest, create some chaos, create some disorder, see people getting stuck, see people getting a little bit caught in their ways, and they come and smash them, give them the shock of their life and wake them up. Apostles are the ones who start the works and open the doors and do the big jobs like Paul. They go and start new works. But then the problem with apostles and prophets is once they've got it started, then to build the work, it's a bit like the architects of a house. They're like the architects, the foundation builders. But then what happens is to actually build a house, you've got to have these ones step up. These are the ones who come in, the pastors are the customer care. They're the people who care. They're the ones you'll say to Miko and Sam and others, look guys, let's just get around you. And a true apostle, by the way, can move in all 5 gifts when they need to. That's the difference. That the one difference of the apostle and the other 4 gifts. The apostle can move in now. That's why I know that both Grace and I, for example, have that apostolic call, because I can actually step into all of them. Obviously, my favorite is this one here. But, you know, from time to time, I do move between these other ones as well. So Grace there was showing, probably in a way, moving more into the pastor. And then there's others, though, here, and who'll come to the work who are genuine pastors. You know, you're people who will actually have that real desire. And you know a pastor, because the pastor's like, yeah, let's get round and support Miko. Come on, let's be there for her. You know, Miko can get on the phone with them and they love it. They'll help them, they'll support them, they'll protect them. The pastors often clash with prophets until they understand each other, because the prophet will just basically say, well, yeah, I can see why. You've got karmic past lives, you've got this unresolved, and you've got some shit you're not dealing with. So you probably fucking deserve it. And, you know, but I'll help you shift that issue. That's the prophet's approach to dealing with it, as a rule. Or they may sometimes give a word of comfort and say, actually, don't worry. If they can see that the person's really struggling, whereas others might be kind of giving them a hard time, the prophet's the one who brings balance. Another one's saying, come on, you've got to break out of your stuff. And the prophet might come and say, well, actually, you know what? It's going to be good for you. God's got a great path for you. Things are going to work out for you, because the prophet knows they just need some encouragement. So the prophet sees what really needs to be done, kind of in a way as a contrarian, and comes and does that. And that's in a way what I've been doing and shaking everyone up. And that's why many of you have gone, oh, far out. You know, I feel like when Warren comes on, I don't know what's going on with the scriptures and all that. But then something in you stays because you know, I need this. This is important. And it is, it's critical. And this is why churches today, by the way, are absolutely like useless. Because most of them basically follow the spirit of Jezebel. And if you look at Revelation 17, which I'll quickly go to, and I'm going to kind of finish up in the next minute or two. So I'm kind of keen to let Steve come up here. Revelation 17, it says here, I think it's in here or 18. I will find it in a minute. It's one of these here. This is talking about that whore of Babylon, or that Jezebel, or that mother, or that the one that's kind of ruling the whole system. So it says, I know it's in one of those scriptures somewhere, but I can't see it. Yep, okay, bingo, got it. So what it says, rejoice, you holy apostles and prophets, for God has avenged you. And somewhere in there, it does also say that she's actually killed, that Jezebel kills the apostles and prophets. I'm certain it's in this scripture here. Yeah, so anyway, basically Jezebel slays the apostles and prophets. So this is what's happened with the church. You've had like the spirit of Jezebel, or the whore of Babylon, which is pretty much ruling over the church, bringing it into the system and turning it into a powerless bunch of absolute banana brains who are now leading people astray with all kinds of false teaching and everything else. So the foundation of this work has been to get the apostles and prophets. But now what I see coming is the next stage. You're going to see more and more of these ones start to come through. And I feel others will step up. Steve Plummer today, for example, you're going to hear someone who I believe right now is being groomed into this office by the Holy Spirit. You know, someone who is a genuine teacher, someone who his approach of Miko or Sam will be, let's just teach them. Let's just teach them some of the deeper stuff, how it all works. And by teaching them, they will get their answers. That's how a teacher thinks. The pastor's like, let's just encourage and protect them. The evangelist's like, yeah, let's just get them to, you know, a message of hope, get them to experience Christ, give them a miracle. You know, if Miko and Sam experience a genuine miracle, then they'll change. That's how these people think. And once everyone works in unity, the pastors go, yep, without the prophets, we know we can't get there. But the prophets go, you know what? I've reached the end of my road. And all I know of this work is, in a way, I've certainly got so much more part to play in this moving forward with grace, because I'll be here to kind of guide and open the doors and keep coming and speaking like this, and still speaking every now and again to teach. But more and more, you'll start to see what Acts 2 says, people being added daily to the work, as you start to see all of these ones step up, which means, in a way, all of you, I would almost guarantee, there will be at least a few of you who are being groomed into that place right now. I don't know who at this stage, or I've got a sense, but Grace, I know, will probably see it more than me right now. I feel she's been given that authority. And so, Steve, there's no question in my mind. There'll be, I'll almost guarantee there's someone here who's stepping up into that. Good chance there's someone here stepping up into that as well. So the point is, as these start to happen, people get encouraged, people get perfected, they start to get into the work of Christ and fulfilling the commission, doing the miracles, going out and helping their neighbors, especially at this time, to help support and encourage people, to get people through this time ahead. Because believe you me, it's going to get ugly. To edify the body, or the spiritual connected network, which is what we are. That's what it means by body of Christ, a spiritually connected network, till we come to unity in the faith, where we can think differently, but love each other and work together, and of the full knowledge of the Son of God, that we no more be children, in other words, stupid baby idiots, tossed to and fro, tricked by every wind of doctrine, every false spirit guide, every idiot on the internet teaching some kind of moronic spiritual doctrine, or doing some love and light meditation of all these people sitting there umming and thinking they're making any fucking difference whatsoever. Excuse the French. That's how prophets speak, by the way. Who deliberately try to just inflame and kind of, you know, break things open. But speaking the truth in love may grow up into all things which is ahead. In other words, that everyone can just actually grow up, you know, get a brain, become connected, and start to build a real loving, accepting network where we accept each other for what we truly are, not just pretend on the surface we do, but deep down we don't like each other. So this is what I see, the whole body coming together. So thank you very much, everyone. And without further ado, I will hand back to Grace and let her bring the balance now by bringing a real teacher here. So thanks, Grace, and thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Warren. Okay, Steve, I've promoted you as a panelist, so whenever you're ready.
Okay, so you can hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, afternoon, evening. Warren, do you want to stop sharing your screen and then I'll share mine? Or does that matter?
I have
just
stopped.
share mine.
I actually have. That's really weird.
No, mine's saying you cannot share your screen until the other participant, or while the other participant is sharing.
Grace, you have to let him share his screen because believe you me, I'll stop sharing. I pushed full share. Can you still see my screen?
Yeah.
Huh?
Oh, I can anyway. Don't know if anyone else can.
This is weird. Maybe. Now I've resumed it. Now I'm pausing it again.
Okay, who can share? All panelists.
Okay, great.
Hang on, here we go. This will stop other screen sharing. Do you want to continue? I'll just continue. Yeah, okay. All right, hang on. Let me...
You and I are the same here, Steve.
Panelist. Grace, remove me as panelist is my
suggestion. No, there we go. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, cool. All right.
Okay.
Looking forward to hearing you, Steve.
Oh, thanks, Warren. It's always interesting to follow a really big introduction like that. So let me just get into presentation mode. Okay, there we go. All right. Well, without any further ado, let's get into the presentation this week. As it says, today is shifting energy, and this is a personal experience, but hopefully in me sharing my personal experience, you will be able to take your own messages and your own lessons from that. It was, I found it quite fascinating listening to everyone at the start there, for example, Christine, and the big shifts she has had, and her and I had a conversation about that earlier in the week, and a bit of a giggle about how things really are changing. And I think my presentation unknowingly dovetails that quite nicely, and certainly the roller coaster that Nolene has been feeling this week is I think indicative of the shifting energy that is occurring. And when I say the shifting energy, I mean, I guess the whole planet. I just get a sense on some level that there are these massive energy shifts. I will present some evidence to show that that's the case, but it's also around the planet. But I think very much for me, and I think based on what has already been said so far, for almost everyone. So, in some respects, we're all feeling the movement and the shifts, and sometimes those movements and those shifts are not necessarily pleasant experiences. And Sam and Miko, for instance, I mean, there's obviously energy moving and shifting there, even if it's not all, it's not a nice experience. There probably is something better on the other side. And my own journey over the last probably five years, but in particular the last two, as many of you will know, is it's not been comfortable. And thank you, William, for your assistance. Today, though, there won't be any vomiting needed by William, so so that's a good thing. All right, let's dive into it a little bit more. So this week, I just wanted to share a couple of things with you. And like I said, some personal observations of mine. I mean, I've always been quite in tune, and more subconsciously and more consciously realizing it now with the earth and with the ocean and with nature in general. I'm more conscious of that, and so I just wanted to show you some things that I've noticed. I want to talk about our true power and where that really comes from, and I have an interesting story to share with you too about just before Easter, of birds in the house. and the messages behind that. I'm going to also unpack, with the help of some messages from the Arcturian, Psalm 23, the very famous Psalm 23, and then if there's any comments or questions at the end, we'll get into that as well. So let's go. So again, these are kind of what I'm going to share with you, are kind of a collection of seemingly random things, but when you look back on them, I think you can kind of see the dots joining. When you're often going through things, you just, in this 3D world, deal with things in a linear fashion one at a time, and then when you look back, you kind of go, oh wow, okay. So just for instance, there's been a lot of and most of you guys will be really up with a lot of internet stuff and social media stuff, messages from the Palladians and the Arcturians and so forth at the moment. It on the 3rd of April, the Pleiades, so that picture there, Venus is obviously the bright star in the sky, and just to the left of Venus, as you looked at it towards the west, at least from where I lived, the Pleiades are actually visible. They're the closest they've been to the Earth in 8 years, and they only come that close every 8 years, and that was April the 3rd. And you could actually, depending on how much atmospheric stuff there was, you could kind of see the Pleiades. The Pleiades are also known as the Seven Sisters. You can kind of see it with the naked eye, but then when you got binoculars out, you really could see the Pleiades. So it makes sense to me that a whole lot of energy shifts and a whole lot of messages and a whole lot of things happening in people's lives, are a result of that closeness. So that was kind of I guess the first thing, looking back on it, and what that to me, there's something in that. There's the synchronicities, the no coincidences. Interestingly, I'm just reading, one of my favorite authors is Michael Connolly, in the Harry Bosch series, and Harry Bosch was saying in one of the novels that he always looks for coincidences because he doesn't believe in coincidences. In a crime detective kind of thing, there are no coincidences. Things happen that way for a reason, and that's been one of the big things. It was just an interesting observation for me that the Pleiades were that close at the time of this high energy and the high energy shifts. And on the 14th, Michael Love, who channels a lot of the Pleiadians, he had this to say. So the Palladian, speaking through him, said this: since we are all creators of reality by virtue of our energetic focus, the more focus and energy given to lower things, even in an attempt to make the world better, in actuality causes the problem to get worse. And the context of this is obviously the COVID-19 lockdowns and all those sorts of things. So the message from the higher beings is, but we've got to be very careful about our focus. The gauge for this is to simply see how it is all making you feel. A starseed warrior of light can indeed change things for the better. However, she will come to the realistic conclusion that she cannot change the outer world directly, and the only thing that can be changed is oneself or one's energy. The ultimate realization a system buster, which is people like us, can have, is knowing that when you change yourself in a positive way on the inside, then and only then can you begin to change the world in a positive way. And I found that quite revealing, but also in many ways nothing new as well, in that we all know that when our thinking changes, when our inner world changes, the world outside of us changes as well. But again, I just found it a fascinating coincidence, a fascinating synchronicity is probably a better term, of the Pleiades being so close to us and Pleiadians channeling a message that is a really strong reminder about what we need to focus on, and how by changing our own thoughts we are changing our own world. And in focusing on negative things like the coronavirus and all of the fear and all that stuff around it, that we really are only perpetuating that. And just again, this again probably dovetails nicely into Dr. Hawkins' work about the different resonance or different frequencies of our emotions. And you know, you can see there from that, and this is not new, I have shared it a couple of times, and I think Grace has as well. You know, those lower emotions that I guess feel horrible for us, you know, the fear, the grief, the apathy, the guilt, the shame, have a really low resonance. And they also cause us to be in a contracted state, whereas the high resonating ones like love and joy and peace, you know, they cause us to be in an expanded state. So, you know, it's really, I guess, again, the synchronicity, and I think too, the work that we do here is really important for that reason, because a lot of our focus is on, you know, those higher vibrating, emotions. And also this one, again, the importance of the work we do. Again, you have seen this before. One person who vibrates at a level of optimism and is non-judgmental of others counterbalances the negativity of 90,000 people who calibrate at lower levels. One person who vibrates at pure love counterbalances the negativity of 750,000. One person at the level of illumination counterbalances 10 million, and one person who vibrates at grace counterbalances 70 million people. So, you know, we might only be 9 or 10 or 15 or 18 people who meet like this, but with our collective higher frequency slash energy, you know, we are helping to raise the vibration, the frequency of the planet. So our work here is really important. And I found this during the week as well, and it's about the really deep importance of the heart and pure love, and that gets back to that channeling from the Pleiadians that I just mentioned about where our power comes from. And this graphic, I think, really highlights it, that again, when we radiate love, it has a much bigger surrounding of the sphere of our bodies than when we resonate fear. And just a little bit of information about that. You know, the heart's magnetic field, which is the strongest rhythm field produced by the human body, not only enters the body, but also extends out in all directions into the space around us. The heart's magnetic field can be measured several feet away from the body by sensitive magnetometers. Research conducted at the Heart Math Institute suggests the heart's field is an important carrier of information. And when you look at that graphic, and when you consider that graphic, you know, again, you think about when you're resonating, when you're in fear, you're resonating, your influence is really, really small. When you're resonating love, and you know, how that can help you and help others and your family and the people you interact with, you know, is a huge difference. And so with that, I think as a bit of a backdrop, or at least a setting up, I just wanted to go into some of the things that I've noticed over probably the last month in terms of energy shifts that are occurring around the world. And a bit more science, the Schumann resonance, and I think Sam mentioned this last week, and I've been watching this for a couple of weeks. And I'll tell you why in a minute, but the Schumann resonance is that's the name given to the resonant frequency of the Earth's atmosphere between the surface and the densest part of the ionosphere. It was named after the German physicist. And essentially what it does, it measures the frequency, if you like, of the Earth. And obviously, as energetic vibrational beings, we can influence the frequency of the Earth. Now, you probably saw a lot of it on social media. On the 5th of April, there was an attempt at sharing positivity and so forth with a global meditation. And a couple of interesting things happened to the Schumann resonance. Right there where that pink line was the start of that global meditation. And you can see the change in that big white blob of energy that continued for quite a while after it, during it obviously and after it, and even several days after, there was still quite a quite a spike in it, in the Schumann resonances around the Earth. Even just as much as yesterday. Now, again, I don't really know why, but the Schumann resonance was quite high. I did, again, notice in my own environment this morning, we had a storm come through. Now, just to give you a little bit of geographic context for this, for some reason, that storm came from the northwest. Now, normally where I live, storms come very much from the southwest, which is to the left of that by about 20 or 30 degrees. And also, storms don't generally look like that. You can see the different layers, the whirlpool, whatever it might be. You know, I've watched in a bit of a geeky ex-geography teacher kind of way. I like storms and clouds and things. You know, just one of those weird geeky things. But you know, that's an unusual formation for us, and certainly this time of year. So again, synchronicities, you know, they are things that I have seen that are further evidence of shifting energies. Now, of course, it's really easy to dismiss that and say, well, it's just a storm, you know, and I get that. You know, however, no synchronicities, sorry, no coincidences. And when you are open to things and pick up energy and so forth, you can see a whole lot of different things. More on that. So weird light and energy in the evenings. So we've lived, just to give these next photos some context, we've lived here for probably 21 years. Our backyard faces west, so my favourite part of the day, other than early in the morning, is the sun and watching the sun go down and the sunsets. And so I have watched them, you know, for over a long period of time. In the last, I would say 6 or 7 weeks, there has been some really weird sunsets, and I just want to give you some examples of that. So that sun going down, again, it's easy to say, well, that's just the sun shining through the clouds and so forth. I get that. That one is a little bit different though. You can see the bubbles of clouds. You've got that really high cirrus type cloud there, but those, you know, those balls of energy with the clouds and the sun behind it is certainly very different. And that these are all taken on different days, by the way. You know, so the light is really weird, and that's what I've noticed. And the different formations are evidence to me of the shifts that are occurring around the planet and with the energy that is moving around the planet. These two in particular, all the ones I'm showing you on this slide, were taken days and days apart. Now, these two are one after the other, probably about 10 minutes apart. The really weird thing about that is that the sun had set, as you could see, yet I could have read a book. It was so bright and weird, the light. And it has been like that on and off for, like I said, several weeks. So it went from that weird purpley light to I guess an equally weird but spectacular kind of orange glow light. And again, someone who's looked out that back in 20 years, I've not seen these sorts of different sunsets. So again, either a random coincidence or random thing happening, or there are some synchronicities there. It's also the morning. This is the morning time. Again, there's that weird purpley, pardon me, mauve kind of light. You know, that violet kind of light that gives a strange whiteness about it, even though it's very much a violet kind of light. So, you know, there are several things that it really does. It's different. Okay, I just know it's different. I can see it's different, and I just have a sense that it's different. I'm sorry, I'm just catching up on some of the comments here. So Miko's noting the different lighting too. Yeah, me too. Warren, he's been seeing things like this for the last 2 weeks. Yesterday morning was an incredible magenta light in the sky around 6 a.m. We've seen some night skies like that in Toowoomba too, all purple and pink. What do I reckon it is? And we've noticed it in Albany too. What do I reckon it is? I actually would love to say I've got an answer for that, Sam. Well, actually, Warren, sorry. What do I reckon it is? I don't know. I think it's, my gut feeling is it's that change that people have been predicting in terms of 5D light, 5D energy coming to Earth, and the Earth shifting. You know, shifting its energy field and shifting its energy. And I think a big part of our work is, you know, that it's hand in glove with the shifting nature of the Earth's energy. We are helping shift the Earth's energy. That's my take on it. You know, happy to hear what others might have to say about that. Okay. Angels in the clouds. Again, these are just cloud shapes, or are they? You know, that appeared right over our house about 8-9 days ago. Yeah, it's just a weird cloud shape, or it's an angel. That one was there 3 days ago, just a cloud shape. That one was there yesterday. That one was there 2 days ago. And that was about 4 days ago. So yeah, I'm seeing lots of different things going on that synchronistically, randomly, no coincidentally, are going on. And to me, they are shifts of evidence. You know, I've got 2 teenage sons who are very attuned to this, but they're also still teenagers at heart, and they tend to roll their eyes at their crazy dad at times when I say, hey, look, that angel's above us in the sky. But they still take that in. So yeah, that when I say the personal experience, you know, I'm certain that we are seeing shifts in energy. And like I said, a mad scientist, a very grounded scientist could come in and give you explanations for all of those things in the physical realm and, you know, in the 3D realm. Totally get that. But there are no coincidences. There are synchronicities. So Alex has said, hang on, what's Warren said? Yeah, Warren said, yes, I'm inclined to agree. Getting ready for the Great Ascension. Yeah, Warren, that's my sense as well. Again, other than a feeling, other than a download, whatever you want to call it, I've got no, you know, who can predict that? Alex has said, yes, been enjoying the cloud formations, keep seeing angel patterns, was feeling it, and a flock of corellas flew over and were silent. No, you're right, it's not like them, they're noisy buggers, aren't they? So it's not just me seeing angels in the clouds either, Miko. No, definitely not. And Nolene, they just brought tears to my eyes. Oh, wow. Well, that's cool, Nolene. And Warren said, Jesus said, Steve, there will be signs and wonders in the heavens before it happens in Luke 21. And this is where I wish I had Warren's photographic memory and grasp for biblical references. But isn't that interesting? There will be signs and wonders in the heavens before it happens. Wow. And then Warren said, Robin, a Facebook friend, posted the most amazing cloud vibration 3 days on Facebook. That is why we have each other, Steve. This is a great presentation. Oh, thank you, Warren. Oh, thanks. Yeah, so in the physical realm, just going to move that. I'm seeing lots of stuff going on, and based on what everyone has said, I was going to get you to share those experiences, which you have been doing in the chat. If anyone wants to take the mic, and there might be something from there that has stood out. If anyone wants to, just whack your hand up, make a comment, and or take the mic to see if it is it's not just me. Clearly, based on what the comments have said, there is a lot of shit going on out there, and it's shit in a good way. So I'll just be quiet for a minute. If you want to contribute something else that you haven't already, please feel free to share. Grace, I don't know if you, Don't know if you can see, sometimes it goes away, the control panel for me.
That's all right. I've got, okay, Christine, you're unmuted.
Oh, okay. I was just listening with fascination, Steve, to what you were saying about the sunsets and the clouds and all those things. And as Nolan's mentioned, we've had some really different sunsets here as well. But the other thing that has happened, it's been to the south. We look out over the south, and to the southwest, on a few occasions, there's been these amazing lights. And when I was a child, we used to often see the aurora from our farm.
Oh, wow.
But these lights were behind the cloud. I've got goosebumps when I'm talking to you, but they were dancing, not dancing lights, they were flashing lights behind the clouds. And I've seen them on 2 or 3 occasions now. And at first you would think it was a lightning storm, but then I had my doubts. And I've seen them probably 2 or 3 times in the last month. I think someone else was with me on 1 or 2 occasions. It may have been Natasha. I can't remember exactly who was here. But it's quite amazing, and it's in a way similar to the aurora that we used to see on a regular basis, which I haven't seen for a long time. But it's really, really impressive, and it's away to the southwest, and it just blows you away. So what you're saying, it's, I guess, is another thing that it adds to the story, I guess.
Thanks, Christine. That's really great. I think that brings a lot of what everyone has sharing, brings a lot of comfort with me. I'm not the only weird one out there. So, other weirdos are seeing weird things, which is really good. Really great comment here from Famida. Many wonders are appearing as people are locked down and staying in, and now Mother Earth can really show off. Yeah, that's cool. Definitely, Famida, I agree with you. And she's doing a great job of that showing off. Is there anyone else? No one else, Grace?
Well, I do want to say that diagram that you had with the fear and love, because I'm very visual, and so seeing that diagram really helps that if we really move in love, the protection that we have around us is much greater. And when we're moving in fear, it's so contracting, and there's less protection for us. So that was just that really stuck out for me, Steve, in that seeing that diagram again. Our auric field, our field of any just expands and widens so that it helps protect us from dark matter, and also any other energy that's not supposed to be in us. And if we just walk in that unconditional love, it will just project out anyway automatically. So I really like that diagram.
Yeah, I will refer to that a couple more times too, because it's kind of a theme going through today. And again, it's the importance of that. Lexia said, divinity coming through to the lower planes. Yeah, I've enjoyed seeing it unfold, but it has been a crazy ride. Yeah, it's certainly, Lexia, it has, hasn't it? It's interesting how that yin and the yang, you say that it's been really fun watching all this stuff, but the bringing the balance back to nature is also the COVID-19 thing. There's also a lot of weird shit happening around the place, and so we've got this duality going on. It's a fascinating time with that changing energy. Alex says, when I asked my 4-year-old son what he could see in the clouds, he said, "Oh, it looks like Archangel Michael." Wow, blew me away. And when he had a chat, how much Michael loves us and is looking after us. Oh, wow, that's really interesting.
Steve, I'd like to make a comment about your the message from the Palladians. I've actually been in tears your whole presentation this morning, so I'm obviously feeling something, and it's great. But I was having a conversation with a friend of mine yesterday about some of the dark stuff that's going on, and I shared a video with her, and she was quite upset and quite distraught by it. And that message that you sent through today, I've had to forward it to her.
Oh, cool.
Because I actually believe that that was a message for her to realise that rather than getting stuck in the fear.
Yeah. Look, yeah. One of the things, the fear, for me, the fear thing's a really interesting one because it's easy to get dragged down into it, like gossip. Fear is like gossip almost. You know, it's, unless you are vigilant, it's so easy. Two or three people are talking about someone, it's so easy to get drawn into that, into the conversation, drawn into that energetically. You know, and I think fear is the same thing, especially, you know, you've only got to look at what's the nightly news, and you get all this stuff blasted with COVID-19 images, and, you know, coffins in New York, and you know, hospitals and sick people and statistics about death, and that whole fear thing. It just drags you down, and it really can consume you unless you you know, unless you are vigilant about it, unless you almost go get out of that automatic state, which we've spoken about in the past, and go manual. And you're so right, Nolene. Like I said, that message from the Pleiadians, there was nothing new in that, but it was almost like it was what we just need to hear right now because of what is going on. And so I found that fascinating too. So I'm glad that does help. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing it. Appreciate it.
A pleasure. Just a couple of other quick things here. Alex said, actually, no, sorry, didn't. What I wanted to add to that was, it's interesting, Alex, in a card reading I did this morning, I actually drew the Archangel Michael card. So synchronicity, I think not. I mean, coincidence, I think not. The synchronicities keep coming. And Lexi has said, seeing how things manifest in the physical, duality is being highlighted so we can learn to find balance. Yeah. I agree, Lexi. That's so true. All right. Anyone else? Any other comments, observations, weird things you've been seeing? Synchronicities that, now that, you know, we've spoken about that, have you just go, because often one of the things I've found with synchronicities, which I'll share a little bit about in a moment again, is that when you're in them, sometimes you don't notice them. It's afterwards where you go, oh, there it is, bang. And so sometimes even just seeing someone speak about the synchronicities highlights things in your life. So before we do move on, are there any other things that you'd like to share? Yeah, Christine, continual synchronicities for me, it's amazing. Yes. And I can almost hear you giggling after that, Christine, as well. All right, we might keep moving. Thanks everyone for sharing. Appreciate that. Okay. All right. Shifting energy messages. So that photo there, you might be going, gee, that looks like bird poo. That's because it is. This next message is about bird poo and birds in the house. Let me explain. This happened on the 7th of April, so a little over a week ago, whatever date it is today, yeah, just before Easter, so the 7th of the 4th. At 8:09 a.m, I came into the house from exercising. I've got 2 girls and 2 boys, as you know. The girls are 21 and 20, and the boys are 18 and 16. I think I got that right. Being a guy, I don't really, you know, those things sometimes slip through my my consciousness. But the 18-year-old Isaac, who, yeah, Sam, same name, synchronicities. I think not. Sorry, coincidence? I think not. He came out of the shower and he said, "Oh, Dad, you should have heard before. A bird flew into the house, and it was flying around, hitting into the glass windows, and it eventually flew away." And I went, "Okay, what do you reckon that was saying to us?" And he went, "I don't know." Anyway, he he had to go and get ready to go to work. He left and went to work. And as he was leaving, I said, well, when you get to work, mate, Google, spiritual meaning of birds in a house and see what happens, see what you come up with. He went, yeah, rightio, no problem. So I go about my normal day. He goes about his day. And, it's an unusual event. We've got there's a pair of birds that pick out lawn grubs out of my grass. They live in the tree in the neighbour's yard, and so they're always around chattering and carrying on. So I'm just looking at comments. What's the meaning of rats living in the ceiling? I'm not sure. That's a shitty message, Steve. Yeah, thanks, Warren. Yeah, well, it is. It gets better, though. Stick with me. It gets better. Okay, so, yeah, 8:09 a.m. he leaves. I kind of forget about that because I'm busy. I'm getting into my day and so forth. But I did leave him with that message. And I'll get this working again. I said to him, yeah, Google the spiritual meaning of birds in the house. And when you do, it comes up with things like this. It may indicate death of a loved one is imminent. Oh, great. Or another one, the interpretation is if the bird is trying to get out of the home, it may indicate that you have placed yourself in a box in your life. You may need to set yourself free and give yourself room to grow if you want to become happy and accomplish your goals. Okay, and another one was an important message is on its way. And so I Googled those just to refresh my memory. We have had a bird in the house before, once or twice. I don't think any of the kids have ever seen that. And it was just interesting that, my son made a point of telling me that, and he's in an interesting phase of life. He dropped out of uni, and isn't quite sure what he wants to do with his life. I mean, neither was I when I was 18, like many of us. So yeah, he's in that interesting phase. Anyway, so he goes off to work. I start work because I work from home. I start work, and same day, 10:46 a.m., I'm disturbed from my work by the exact same thing. Same bird has flown into the house, is flapping around, banging against the glass, panicking, trying to get out. And so I text Isaac, and here's a screenshot of that. And as you can see there, 10:46, I've said, it happened again, Ike, just now. He said, what did? And then him being the intuitive kid that he is, he puts two and two together and says, the bird. I say, yes, or yep. He's gone, what the fuck? I said, there's a message there, mate. And interestingly said, I forgot to Google it. I'll do that now. So a little bit of time goes by. He gets back and says, Google is giving many different answers. I've said, yeah. He said, well, which one is it? And if we go back, they were the answers that we got from Google. And the first one, it may indicate death of a loved one is imminent. Well, my mother's 89. Yeah, that's possible. So next time the phone rings, I'm probably going to jump a little bit. But I don't know. I got a sense that wasn't it. I got a sense it was one of the other two. So yeah, 10:46. We have that text chat. I leave it at that because I want him to have a think about it. The other thing that happened when the bird was flying around, I sort of went into the lounge and opened the sliding door a bit more, and so it had room to fly out. But I did notice, because it's flying around quite quickly, I did notice it, when birds are panicking, they poo a lot, right? And so I did notice this thing drop a poo, and anyway, it flies out the door, and I'm looking for the poo. I couldn't find it anywhere. And I went, oh, I'm sure, I'm not seeing things. I'm sure it crapped in the house. And I'm looking all over the carpet. We got brown carpet, so I couldn't really see it. We got a dark brown leather lounge. I couldn't really see it. I'm going, I'm certain that it did. And I'm looking around. Anyway, so we've had that. My second son has come out, and I've explained what's happened to him, and so we're sitting, the three types of things. And I said, oh, well, Nanny's, but I don't feel she's going to cark it right now, do you? We went, no. And so anyway, so we have a chat in the lounge room, and remember the bird poo, right? That is my my comfy chair where I sit and watch the sport on TV. I can happily sit there for several days and watch a test match, cricket go on. That's my chair. So I'm sitting in that. Nate, the youngest son, is sitting in the other lounge to the right of that. As you look at it, I put my leg down on the chair, and what I found that was where the bird had crapped on it. So I couldn't find it. You know, I actually had to sit down in the chair to actually find where the bird had crapped on it. And so it wasn't an overly pleasant experience. Here's the thing. So what was the message? Well, I don't know. There was, you know, of the messages, you know, I tended to think it was perhaps that third one, an important message is on the way, because the phone didn't ring. My mother hadn't died, you know, didn't get any phone calls. Perhaps there was something in that middle one, but again, that didn't really resonate strongly with me, although maybe Grace is raising an eyebrow. But I just thought, well, okay, the one that felt right to me was that last one, an important message is on the way. And when I actually sat in the bird shit, I thought, well, okay, I really have to pay attention to what's going on today, because some messages here, I think. Anyway, later that night, so it's the same day, about 8:15, I was on a webinar. Many of you, or some of you at least, were probably on that webinar as well. And the presenter was telling the story of his financial journey. And he's involved in a church, and he was telling us how, let me just have a quick look. Warren, poop on the red chair could be you will get in the shit if you go and get a lap dance tomorrow. Looks like a lap dancing chair. Actually, Warren, I wouldn't know what a lap dancing chair is like, so you'll have to take me to the places you frequent, and we can find out together. Yeah, thanks. So anyway, later that night, I'm on a webinar, financial webinar. Good response, Steve, thanks. I'm on a webinar, and so it's the presenter is telling us the story of his financial journey. And he was saying how for years he had struggled as the sole breadwinner for the family, and the pressure and the anxiety that he felt. And at this one point, they were at their church, and he was really down because they basically had no money, and his wife had $3.50 in her wallet, and he had about the same in his. And the giving plate came around, and his wife went to put the $3.50 or whatever it was in the plate, and they both hesitated. And he said to her, well, one of the messages the pastor has been talking to us about is that really, if we've got worries about finances, we need to let go and let God handle it. And so the presenter then told the story of, well, if that's the case, you know, everything else that I've done in my life up to this time has not really worked for me. And so it's only $3.50. It's not gonna, if we've got $3.50 or we give it away and we give it away with love, you know, it's not really going to hurt us. Well, it can't hurt us any more than only having $3.50. So they gave away the $3.50 to the plate, again, thinking, okay, let go, let God do it. As they were leaving the church, he's telling the story, as they were leaving the church, they ran into some friends, and the friends said, hey, come and get some burgers with us. You know, let's go and have a bit of a two families together having burgers. And I went, oh, that'd be really great. But the problem was, they didn't have any money. They couldn't pay for it. And he was telling the story of how difficult that was. He said, because when I went to pay for the burgers at the counter, he said, I pulled out my credit card, but I knew that card was maxed out. There was no money on it. He said, I was in this really tough position of, do I have to ask my friend and embarrass myself and ask him to cover it? Or he said, will I be true to what we were speaking to the pastor about and let go and let God, even though there's no money on this credit card? He said, well, I'll act with faith. And he tapped the credit card or gave it to the shop assistant. The money went through, or the order went through okay. And he said, to this day, I have no idea how that actually happened, because there was no money on that credit card. And he said that was just a sign that I got that changed everything for me, because when I, in faith, let go and let God sort out my finances, everything changed for me. And so that was really cool, that whole story during the webinar. And so, you know, I took some nice notes that night, and I wrote down things like, you know, financial abundance comes from letting go of control. And the quote that I really loved was, power and freedom comes from knowing you'll be okay. So the presenter said, this is one of the things that he learned, is that power and freedom comes from knowing you'll be okay. Just let that sink in for a minute. Power and freedom comes from knowing you'll be okay. And he said that applies to every part of your life, to finances, to your relationships, to your health. When you let go of control of it, true power and freedom will come to you. And that was a really cool message. And anyway, the webinar finished, and then then, you know, we went about our night and so forth. And the next day, the 8th of the 4th, at about 4:45 a.m., this happened. I just had this download, this flash. So I woke up, Jenny was still asleep. That's actually me, by the way. I'd been working out a little bit. Just ignore the stock image watermarks on it. Okay, that really is me who's been working out. So I just woke up and I went, shit, that's it. And I'm waking Jenny up, giving her an elbow, and she was probably thinking, oh, not again. But no, it wasn't that kind of wake up early in the morning elbow. But I just went, shit, that's it. And she said, what are you talking about? I said, the birds, me sitting in shit, the messages from that webinar. I had to listen to that webinar. I had to be at that webinar. She said, what are you talking about? And then I went on to explain, well, remember the message from the bird. I said, if the bird's trying to get out of the home, it may indicate that you've placed yourself in a box in your life. You may need to set yourself free and give yourself room to grow if you want to become happy and accomplish your goals. And then it said, an important message is on the way. And it wasn't until, God knows why, and I'd use that word deliberately, God knows why, the next day at 4:45 in the morning, it all actually hit home. One of the things the presenter said about letting go of control, you know, power and freedom comes from knowing you'll be okay, all really good. But one of the things I didn't write down, which struck me at 4:45 the next day, was what he called something that makes you really unhappy. Because when you try and be in control, you actually can have and suffer from breadwinner syndrome. And he explained that. I didn't actually write this down, but he explained it. He said that his life, up until that moment of having the talk with the pastor and handing his finances all over to God, his life was full of long hours for not much reward. It was full of frustration. It was full of anxiety. It was full of the stress of being the breadwinner, of being responsible for paying the bills. And he said, pretty much it made me miserable. He said, I had what's called breadwinner syndrome. In other words, you get stressed out by having to step up to the plate every day, because if you don't, you can't pay your bills. And it's a vicious cycle. He said, so what I realized was that I wasn't really present with my family in the little bit of time that I was there. I was always thinking about work. If I wasn't at work, it was always on my mind. So I wasn't really listening to people and wasn't really interacting. And I was working long hours, and it was just this treadmill that I was on because I had this breadwinner syndrome. And he said, when I let go of that, that's when everything changed. He said, when I let go of that, I was more present. I started working less. I started making more money because I handed my finances over to God. And it was at 4:45 a.m. on the 8th of the 4th, God knows why, I woke up and all of those pieces fell together. And it was just one of those no coincidences, synchronistic type moments that I believe over time will be life-changing for me. So breadwinner syndrome, the things he mentioned were stress and anxiety from the pressure of having to succeed so you can pay bills. I think it's not exclusively, but I think it's, and certainly single mums will probably have the same thing, but I think it hurts men a lot as well. And if I reflect back on my life, that's probably what I've suffered for a long period of time. At least I think more so when the kids were born. You know, we went back to one income, and there was always, well, if I just didn't want to do something one day, I didn't really have a choice. I had bills to pay. You know, we had a mortgage and 4 little kids. We had 4 kids under 5 at one point. You know, it was a freaking nightmare at times, you know, in a nice, loving way. But you know, that I realised that was one of the things that had been happening in my life. You know, and he also said, you know, working long hours, getting nowhere, always pushing and striving to make success happen. You know, I connected with that. Always at work, never really present with the family. These were all things the webinar presenter had said the night before, which I never wrote down, but which somewhere I had taken in. And it occurred to me at 4:45 the next day. So I was kind of like that guy in the picture for much of my life. And it was just one of those, you know, that I need to control everything. If I'm not in control of everything, then it's not going to happen. I've got to keep going. I've got to keep striving. And it was a vicious cycle, I guess, like the fear thing we spoke about earlier. It was so easy to get sucked down into that and drawn into that. Whereas when you let go of that need to control, things can change. Just how that has changed for me. Earlier in the week, I closed a $10,000 sale. It was probably the easiest sale I've ever made. Again, has that got anything to do with letting go and handing finances over to God? Well, yes. Or it was just one of those coincidences. It's been a fascinating journey. Grace said, rain just fell heavily right here now, Steve. You're hitting the mark. Oh, thanks, Grace. Isaac said, I've been there for a year or more, breaking through now. Amazing work. Thanks for sharing. Thanks, Isaac. You are a bit younger than me, I think, so lucky you. You found it a lot earlier than I did, and probably didn't have to wake your missus up at 4:45 in the morning with the good news. Thanks, Warren. Well done. Oh, wow. Warren said, Grace, 1 Kings 18, rain shows the breaking of the influence of Jezebel and Baal. Okay, Sam says, this really resonates with me too for a lot of years. I feel it has been changing over the last couple of weeks. Yeah, Sam, and I think that's part of that energy shift that you were, that you were speaking about, that I was speaking about earlier. Thanks, Christine. Wow, Steve, wonderful revelation. Warren has said, means the spirit of Elijah is present. So yeah, that was one of those. It was a moment that I like I said, I believe over the next couple of years, or will forever be life-changing for me. It does go a little bit deeper than that, though. I just want to share that with you. So we had, let's break this down, because I had, after that happened, I think that day or the next day, I had a talk with Grace about this, and she said, do you see what's happened here? And I kind of went, well, yeah, it was a message, and I'm kind of clever because I worked it all out eventually, you know, and aren't I smart? She went, it goes deeper than that. She said, look what happened. She said, the bird came in. It first appeared to your son, who was 18. And so it appeared to him first. And if I can just sidetrack for a second, I've shared all this with Isaac, my son, and I said to him, mate, you're really lucky. You got this message too, but you got it when you're 18. So please remember that true power comes from letting go and knowing that everything will be okay. If you can live that in your life, thank God you didn't have to wait till you were over 50 before you got that message. And she said, then the bird came back, right? This is going back to the story that with Grace breaking it down. And I said, yeah. She said, so then it appeared to the father. And I went, yeah, that's right. She said, then there was a big bird poo, right? To make sure the message really rammed home. And I said, yeah, that's true. And she said, when you look at it, you break that down. She said, can you see the Holy Trinity at play here? Father, Son, and Spirit. She said, the bird was the Holy Spirit. She said, you were visited, your house was visited by the Holy Spirit that morning. And it brought a message to you that will change your life and the life of your family. And she said, think of always through the Bible, in so many instances, the Holy Spirit is always depicted as a bird. Always. And then she named 3 or 4 different ones. And so she said the Holy Spirit visited you with that particular message. And that was just like, wow, okay, I get it. I wasn't really that clever to start with. I get it now. I understand. And it was, it's been a very, thanks Lexi. Yeah, it's been a very interesting sort of, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, whatever days it has been, 10 days since then, integrating all of that. And I also want to go back to a couple of things, but just to finish this little bit of the discussion off, the breadwinner syndrome. It's not a great thing. And the message, again, just to summarize it, is to release the need to control, to let go of that breadwinner syndrome. The frustrating thing for me, and I think Christine kind of mentioned it, the journey part of change and so forth at the start, she mentioned it, because 12 months ago, I was pretty much like that. I was pretty much oblivious to it. The breadwinner syndrome is not necessarily new, because 6 months ago I was aware of it. You know, I'd heard Warren talk about it. Grace had even broached it a few times with me, saying that, you know, that is one of the patterns that I have in terms of that stress around having to pay bills and having to make things work and having things to be a success, and all the force around that. And like Christine intimated at the start, I'm kind of frustrated that I had to go through, that awareness, that constant reminder, and then I actually had to sit in a bird shit before the penny finally dropped. And now my sense is that whole thing is about is now a freedom thing for me. And just a couple of comments here. So Famita has said, and this message will pass on down to your descendants. Yeah, Famita, yeah, so true. So it will pass down to my descendants and generations, and hopefully, hopefully that that freedom thing is a generational thing. And I'm hoping, well, I think it is. It's powerful enough that it's broken the chains. Isaac has said the beautiful thing is your best day is today and the next day. You have 40 plus years. Oops, I'm just moving. You have 40 plus years to move mountains without having to work within the old mind. Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. And Warren has said, Breadwinner comes from Rational Male book by Rollo Tomasi. Subconsciously, the feminine expect it, and men sacrifice their purpose and divine masculinity and power. Yeah. And I can only agree with that, Warren. Yeah, and so Miko has said, amazing. I had the bird experience many years ago. Too, just not the shit bit. Well, maybe that's the key thing, right? You've got to sit in bird shit before you really see what's going on. Warren has then gone on to say, and end up buying houses they don't want, things to keep their wives happy, etc. Yeah, that's all part of that. But hopefully, I've broken that, and I've broken that generationally with the help of the Holy Spirit and this community. I've broken that. Miko has said, I'm having this experience with rats now, though, and their poo. Warren, once I was free from that, it was amazing. Yeah. Truth is, a man can live anyway, anywhere. Let's just see, I can imagine so. Okay, so that was a big part of what had happened over the last few days, last 3 or 4 weeks and 6 weeks if I look at the clouds and things. So when I said the shifting energy is a personal experience, it has been a very personal shift for me in terms of seeing things, experiencing things, feeling things, and then that particular story. I guess the good thing too, I go back to the DeMartini stuff that Grace works with and uses, and whatever you haven't loved is repeated until it is loved. And if I look back at that, because what the breaking of the chains has done, it has undone, or it has stopped, I guess, a near on at least a 20-year, maybe even longer pattern of behavior. And it's really hard to break a pattern of behavior. So we do have the tools to help in the community to help that. But whatever you haven't loved is repeated until it is loved. And if I think about that, yeah, instead of loving that sense of, well, everything's going to be okay. It was going back into that fear place. I've got to control everything. You know, and then going further down that, whatever you resist persists. Yeah, that has certainly persisted all my life because I've resisted it. Whatever you bury, buries you. So yeah, I think now that moving ahead, and you know, blessed that my son has seen that, and again, the significance of him seeing it first, pointing it out, me then seeing it, and then me, because, and it's interesting too, me because of my, probably my closed heart, me because of the life experience that I've had, and not as open to things. I had to sit in bird shit before I actually saw it, whereas my son picked it up very, very quickly. So that was the big shift for me, the big movement of energy, and the big personal experience or change that I've had. I wanted to finish today with a discussion of Psalm 23. I know Warren has mentioned this many, many times, and based on Warren's urgings, or Warren's teachings at least, you know, I read Psalm 23 just about every day, and all of you will be very familiar with it. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I do really like that. I do really connect with that. But one of my problems was I didn't really understand the metaphoric language in it. That is, until I came across this book, We the Arcturians, by Norma Milanovic. It was written, I mentioned it, I think last time I spoke, it was written in 1990, or published in 1990, and the short story of it is that Norma and her friends Betty Rice and Cynthia Plosky, over several months, or probably 12 months, channeled the Arcturians who, you know, who arrived near when Dr. Norma lived, and they recorded all of the teachings of the Arcturians. And one of the things they taught, and if I could just quickly read from page 279, just to give it some context. So from page 279, it says, the leap your planet will soon take into the future will demand that the souls on the planet interact with each other and with Mother Earth in a way that commands respect. And remember, this is 1990. And it is this topic that we wish to address in the closing pages of this document. The higher mode of living is what many have yearned for on earth for several years. We observe that you weary of negativity and are waiting for redemption. We see that you toil long hours in the silence of your patience as you wait for the return of your Saviour. We have compassion for the length of time you have endured, waiting to inherit your state of beingness. Allow us to assure you that the day for your justice and redemption is coming. It is on the horizon of your future, and it will be the day when all those of high consciousness will rejoice. To be among the celebrants, all you humans have to do is to raise your eyes to the divine. Hold the spark of hope, faith, and charity in your hearts and watch the miracles unfold in front of your eyes. You are not leaderless in this quest for the highest. Neither are we as we assist you on your quest, for we celebrate the same leader as you do, our sisters and brothers of the light. A message sent to you centuries ago is still one of the most powerful tools you have to use for seeking guidance for this new day that is fast approaching. Allow us to recite it to you once again, and also to give you the interpretation of the message from our elders back on Arcturus. And so what they did, and we'll go through this very shortly, what they did is they broke each line down and gave, from the Arcturians, gave their interpretation of what it actually means. And it's quite prophetic and fascinating as to what it actually means. I'll just quickly have a look at some comments here. Okay. And so Warren has said, this book looks great, Grace. This is about when you had your experience with the man you picked up and told about the coming of Christ, dropped him off at the airport, and he vanished. So yeah, it's a fascinating book, Warren, that explains much about the universe. So what the Arcturians did is they break down Psalm 23 line by line. So the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. What that means is all enlightened beings address the same concept. There is only one God and divine being who is our creator. This magnificent being, whom you call God, takes care of all the needs of the souls who are on the journey back to light. When these souls turn their attention to this being, they do not want for anything, for their needs on all levels are met. Actually, I might just add too, that introduction that I read out, powerful tools for us to use for those seeking this new day that is fast approaching. Perhaps that new day is here. I don't know that for sure, but in 1990, maybe it's taken a couple of decades in linear 3D Earth time, but maybe we're here now for that part. So the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. That's what that means. He maketh me lie down in green pastures. The colour green is reserved for the fourth chakra within the human energy system. It represents the heart center. In humans, this center is the most powerful. It is also the one which is the most neglected by many. It is this center that hurts the easiest and is closed the fastest by many. When one connects his or her consciousness with God consciousness and truly behaves on a higher level, that is when the soul experiences operating from the heart center. In this state, the pastures then become very fertile and green and contain all the ingredients of the power that will be bestowed upon the individual. And so, again, there's no coincidence with the diagram that Grace referred to and the importance of love and being in your heart space. It's not always easy to, and as they said there, it's the one that's closed the fastest by many. So the green pastures is the heart center, the fourth chakra. And that's the diagram that Grace was referring to. So the more we can live in our heart space, even from the Arcturians are telling us, that's where our power is. Okay, he leads me beside the still waters. It is in the acceptance of the heart center as the true source of wisdom and the behaviors related to states of high consciousness that one acquires the calmness for which so many on the planet hunger. So the still waters is the calmness coming from the heart. For it is the quieting of the mind that follows. The mind gets the soul and heart into trouble when the mind is not at rest. When an individual is in a peaceful state of mind, which is likened to the still waters, it is then that the individual can do no battle. It is at this moment that the second step of the power is given to the soul, for it is at this moment that the individual obtains his or her own mastery. He restores my soul. With the above ingredients in place, the soul is then in the position to undo all karmic debts. In this undoing, it prepares for entrance into the kingdom of the Father. He leadeth me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. When all karmic debts are released, the soul is free to be led on the path to high kingdoms. On your planet, you might call it sainthood or the road of the ascended masters. We call it the fifth dimensional frequency, for it is in this state that individuals command the power to control the liquid light of the great central sun. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. The earth is likened to a valley, for the consciousness of humans is so low. It is considered by many in the higher realms to be the valley of shadows and illusions. And we talk about the 3D illusion and so forth. So yeah, that aligns. Death is an illusion. Death is only the crossing over from one state of consciousness to another. It is the passing of one karmic responsibility onto another. It is a connection back to the etheric body that is the soul. It is actually life. On earth, another illusion is that evil exists. We observe that your negativity and terror are reality to you. What you do not understand is that you have created these processes through the powers of your own mind. Therefore, when one walks on the higher planes with God, the creator of all, evil and death are no longer feared. When one's consciousness transcends these illusions, there is no longer a need to retain them. Since each creates his or her own reality through the power of the inner world, once negativity and fear are removed, these qualities will no longer manifest on the earth plane or in an individual environment. You really do have that much power, O sisters and brothers of the universe. Thou preparest a table for me in the presence of mine enemies. The one creator of all does not discriminate. God loves all souls with the equal intensity of a father and mother. Therefore, regardless of what one has done on the illusionary path, God does not punish, but actually prepares a feast table for all of the children. Thou anointest my head with oil. We are all the chosen people of God, or the chosen children of God. We are all delivered from our weaknesses. It is only the ego that keeps you separate from the Father. God anoints us all with the mark of the risen Saviour. It is your ego and choice as to whether you will accept or reject the appointment. My cup runneth over. In the initiation from God, all children are offered abundance. This is truly one of the rewards from the deliverance of all karmic debts. The universe is actually one of abundance and not one of poverty. It is only the consciousness of the human form that has limited abundance. It is your minds or knowledge that keeps you in poverty. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. In the state of connectedness, the meek will inherit the earth. Comfort, happiness, and peace are the rewards that will follow for all the children of light who choose to raise their consciousness. And again, I think that aligns back to the diagram that Dr. Hawkins has created. And then the last one, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The kingdom of God is eternal. There is no mistaking the journey is an endless one. Each civilization and species, as each civilization and species evolves, there are always new challenges, adventures, hopes, and states of ecstasy to experience. When the humans of Earth learn to transcend their basic fears and limitations, then they too will be free to explore other dimensions of reality. The house of the Lord has many rooms. Each civilization and species is likened to another room. All are experiences and challenges just waiting in the future for the soul's next incarnations. All souls are on the path back to the great central sun. It is only our experiences in the different areas of the universe that differ. In reality, all our journeys are one with the creator of all. And then they finish just with a statement. The day is coming for you, our sisters and brothers of the beloved terror, as in T-E-R-R-A, not terror, but terror as in terra firma, to experience the realities and rooms of the house of the Lord. We wait patiently for your new birth and the rebirth of the celestial body upon which you walk. So that's their breaking down of Psalm 23. And when I read that, I understood at a much deeper level you know, the significance of that prayer and the significance of opening the heart space. And probably the greatest revelation for me out of that was he makes me lie down in green pastures, and the opening of the heart chakra. And it's a really good lesson, I think, signal, a reminder for me to be more open in that heart space as much as possible. And again, it might be starting to get redundant, but the purpose of that is love. And when we do, obviously our world and the whole world is better, choosing that love and opening of the heart over fear. And all right, a tool to use. You have done this. If you go to that particular YouTube link, Greg Braden, most of you have probably heard of him. That video only goes for about 12 minutes. You can fast forward to about the 4-minute mark till about the 11-minute mark. And he's got an exercise that helps you harmonize the heart and the brain. And for me, that as a writer, for instance, that's really important to connect the two of them. I do it many mornings. I would love to say I do it every morning, or I'm really disciplined with it. I guess I'm not. But I really encourage you to have at least a go of doing that, because it can be a really, and I will, Sam, I'll put that link in the chat. It can be a really important thing to help you open your heart and to connect your heart and your brain. It's really easy to do. You know, Greg's got that beautiful sonorous voice, and it really is something. So I'd love you to, if you could, do that for homework. And it, yeah, like I said, it only takes a few minutes. It's a really good way to start your day. If you're wanting to write something or create something, it's a good way to get you centered and connect the important heart and brain together so that you are, I guess, aligned to the purpose of what you are doing there. So I will, Sam, I'll put that, as soon as I get off presentation mode, I'll put that in the chat so everyone can copy it. There are several versions of it. I like this one, the one that comes up with that green background. And again, it's no coincidence, green, the heart chakra, green pastures. You know, so the synchronicities, they're all there, you know, and obviously Greg gets that, and that's why that's got a green background. And, you know, with all, when it's all said and done, always remember rule number 6 as well. You know, that can be helpful. That can help get you back in your heart space when things generally go to the shitter, which they no doubt will in the future at some point. So yeah, just remember rule number 6, that will help. And anyone got any questions or would like to share? That's just about me done. And I'll put that, I mean, I might even do that now. Get off presentation modes. Where'd that go?
I don't know if anyone wants to hear it again, but Miko missed the rule number 6. And Steve, as you know, Steve is a great storyteller.
Okay.
So if anyone's okay with that.
Oh, did you already put that in there, Grace? Oh, you did too. Okay, cool. Alrighty. So rule number 6. So 2 prime ministers are sitting discussing the affairs of state. The prime minister on the left is the home prime minister, that's his office and so forth. The prime minister on the right is the visiting prime minister. And as they were busy discussing the affairs of state, very important meeting, the door to the home prime minister's office bursts open and in runs his secretary, Mary, waving a piece of paper, red in the face, spittle coming out of her mouth in deep anger, saying, "Prime Minister, do you know what the cabinet has done?" And he puts his hand up and says, Mary, please remember rule number 6. And Mary instantly changes state and says, "Oh, sorry, Prime Minister. Yeah, I forgot. No problem. I'll come back later." She bows slightly and leaves the door, closes the door behind her. The visiting Prime Minister raised an eye, but they went back to discussing the affairs of state. 10 minutes later, the door bursts open again, and in storms a cabinet minister, and he's red in the face, angry. "Prime Minister, do you know what the press have said?" And ranting and raving. And the home prime minister puts his hand up and he says, "John, please remember rule number 6. And John changes state instantly and says, "Oh, I'm sorry, Prime Minister, I'll come back later." And he bows slightly and leaves the room. "Thank you, John," the home prime minister says. The visiting prime minister raised an eyebrow again, but said nothing, and they went back to discussing the affairs of state. And this happened a 3rd time, and when the person had left, the interrupter had left, the visiting prime minister says to the home prime minister, he says, "My friend, in all my 25 years of public life, I've never seen anything quite like that. Please tell me, what is rule number 6? And the home prime minister, he paused and he smiled and he said, "Oh, my friend, that's easy. Rule number 6, don't take yourself or life too seriously." And the visiting prime minister, he smiled and he said, "Oh, my friend, that's a very good rule." He said, "Tell me, if that is rule number 6, what are all the other rules?" And this time it was the home prime minister's turn to pause and smile. And he said, "My friend, there are no other rules." And so whenever anything gets really bad, rule number 6, don't take yourself or life too seriously. So there we go. Anyone got any questions, would like to comment, share? Thanks, Alex. Appreciate that. Thanks, Miko. Yeah, Alex has said, "Thanks for sharing, Steve. Great lessons today. Lots of takeaways, lots of great takeaways." Thanks, Alex. Sheldon, thank you, Sheldon. Appreciate that. And Christina said, "Thanks for sharing, Steve. Powerful messages." Miko, I'd like to share what rat's spiritual meaning is if anyone's interested. William has said, "Thanks, Steve. Awesome stuff today." Famita, thank you, Steve. You gave great value to us. Pleasure, Famita. Yeah, I'm sure rats in the ceiling. Grace, if you can give Miko the microphone. So that panel's gone from me for some reason.
Oh, hi there. Yeah, so I've just been having a continual problem with rats in the ceiling, and like it's like no matter what I've been doing, putting rat bait up there, they just haven't disappeared. And it just occurred to me listening to you today about your bird experience. Like, I think it'll keep happening until you look deeper into the meaning. So I was actually looking that up today, because yeah, so what it says is the rat spirit animal appears to you when you have things in your life that are keeping you from reaching the stars. The rat meaning also indicates wealth, abundance, and fertility, similar to the rabbit meaning. And don't fear the rat spirit animal, because this symbolizes an abundant period that will soon take place. And also read another bit which said, I have to let go of the old emotional experiences and negative thoughts in order to move forward. So like this has really hit home now today, reading that. Yeah.
Okay, which of those two, because when I looked up the bird one as well, there are a number there. Which of those two resonates most with you?
Letting go of old emotional experiences and like making room and letting abundance in. Yeah.
Nice. Grace, I don't know if you want to comment on that.
Well, because I know Miko, so I would say I totally wholeheartedly agree, Miko. And fertility doesn't mean that you're going to have more babies physically, which I think you stopped. Right? Is enough for you, right?
Yeah.
So the way I see that is the fertility that's coming your ways in regards to giving birth to new things. So you're pregnant, you've been pregnant for a lot of things. You've been thinking through, you've been planning, you've been chewing. And so that shows me everything is coming into fruition. And allow yourself to strengthen yourself and really go deep within and continue to follow those guidance, because you have been guided and you know that. So you really got to listen to what's the inner voice is guiding you. No one else, what's going around you, but you know 100% what is resonating for you right now. And if that message for me, how I interpret it, is that you're so much on your path, and just continue to really go deep within.
That's so true. Like they've just been persistent, really, and it's like I didn't even look into the spiritual meaning of why they won't go away, and there's poo everywhere outside, and so it's
no coincidences.
Very enlightening.
We forget that because it's so easy to look at the physical dimension, and remember what came out first in the beginning was the word. And so that still gets to me after years and years and years of looking at scriptures. That still gets to me. In the beginning was the word. What is the word? Who is the word? And why is the word was the first?
Yeah.
Something else. So word, I mean, when you think about it in a linear term, word you cannot see, can you?
No.
You can sense, you can feel, you can kind of engage, and also word either destroys you in your heart and traps you, or into bondage, that kind of thing. So it's good. Rats are also too very resilient, aren't they? And it's hard to get rid of them.
Tell me about it. Yeah. So I'm definitely going to be paying more attention to spirit animals and meanings, and like, when they occur in my life.
Yeah, that's why I appreciated with Steve's presentation today. He went through one by one those clouds, and for some people, like, oh my God, can you get over it, Steve? Can you I see it's just a cloud, but really, when you look at it, if we are a people of awakened, if we're awakened and we're alert, then we see all these signs around us and we see the metaphors, and there's a message for all of us. Now, for Steve, it was quite significant, but for somebody else, it's like, oh, it's just a cloud. But again, it was a message for him. So our role really is to be awake and see what all these things mean, because every day what I do, even if a pen falls on the floor for me, okay, what kind of pen fell? Was it a colored pen? Was it a pencil? And what type of pen is it? Pen, is it a drawing pen or is it a writing pen? So it actually helps if you break it down from macro to micro, like Steve went on through from macro to micro. If you really break it down and bite chunk it, there's a huge message for you, really. And seriously, you don't need to run around looking and searching for an answer. It's right within you. Answer's there.
Amazing.
Yeah. And seriously, you don't want to be sitting on it like Steve, hey, until you finally got the message.
Well, there's just poo everywhere outside, which I'm having to clean up continually. So it's the same thing, but different.
Oh, there's shit everywhere, right? Isaac has said there's rats in my ceiling.
Okay.
No, it's good.
Alexa says, we have rats too. The neighbour's cat didn't win that battle. Ginger fur in the backyard after a 3 a.m. joust. Lexi, sound waves are powerful. I love animals, spirits. They have led me my whole awakening. Thanks, Steve. Inspiring synchronistic messages, taking care of matters of the heart and surrendering to the universal power. Yeah. Thanks, Lexi. That's nice. Isaac, a stray cat came along I found today, though. Wow, the animal messages are coming out of the woodwork now, aren't they? Hey, that's cool.
Who started it, Steve?
And for me, it's got squirrels in the ceiling. Wow.
Oh, is it interesting? So 3, again, the working of the 3, and what 3 in the ceiling. So Mika's got 1 on the ceiling, Famita and Isaac.
Wow.
So yeah, have a look at that one. Oh, my hat.
Nolene, I'm not sure I should thank you. You've stirred up a lot of shit for me. I feel ill. Pleasure, Nolene. Anytime.
How good was that message, guys, from Steve? I got a lot out of that, Steve.
Oh, thank you, Grace. Thanks, Fiona. Yeah, thanks, Will. Thanks, Christine. Thank you. Thank you, Warren.
I tell you what, each time that you share, Steve, you're going deeper and deeper, and more layers have come up for you. So perhaps we'll encourage you to share more, because then more things will shed off you. How does that sound, Steve?
Yeah, just Warren, there's hope for you yet. Gee, thanks, Warren. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
I like that tone. That said a lot, Steve.
Someone has to balance it, Grace. Yeah, thanks, Warren. I'm just reading messages at the same time.
Oh, that's right. You're a man. One thing at a time, hey?
Yes, Grace. Famita, you've come a long way. Thanks, Famita. It's been quite a journey, though. I won't say that it's been easy, but it's been a journey.
So for those who have actually listened to Steve from his first sharing his message to today, give us feedback for, I'm just asking for myself too, and for Steve, how have you found him sharing his energy in comparison to when he first started? Because it's actually good to have a feedback and to see your progress, because, you know, most of the time, well, for me anyway, most of my time, 99%, I don't actually see it myself unless someone gives me feedback. That's in regards for myself. Ah, he does, doesn't he, Fiona? I actually agree with you. His tone and the pickup of his voice and the pickup of his energies faster.
Energy's cleaner. Okay, cool.
Guess after all that shitty experience, I'd
Yeah, thank
say
you.
so.
Thanks, Will. A lot of it's been vomited out by Will, I think. So thanks, Will. Passionate, thank you.
Actually, Steve, you've always been passionate. You've just held it back.
Yeah, Lexi, this is interesting from Lexi. More comfortable sharing is also established a vibration signature to his teachings.
Yes.
Wow.
I'd agree. Do you know what that means for you, Steve?
No, not immediately.
Mm.
So I was hung up on William's message about I still have my stomach. Yeah, today you do. Matching energies and insight, Isaac says. Very strong, kind and relatable. Oh, thanks, Lexi.
Are you finally getting the meaning of rule number 6, Steve?
I'm a work in progress.
Oh, Christine wants to take the mic.
Look out.
Go ahead, Christine.
Oh, hi, Steve. Yes, there's definitely big shifts, and it's so obvious in your presentation. And I guess, as you know, with your first presentation, it triggered something in me, which was a real learning experience. It was pretty funny, really. But I feel that you've let go of the reluctance of sharing your inner being.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's made the difference. It really is a heart message now, instead of being vulnerable,
Yeah.
and being afraid to share your heart. What I get now is that it's really you that's speaking. It comes from within. And when you share, it really has an impact on people, however it means for them. And it's really powerful now. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for that. Look, yeah, it's actually when you were saying that, Christine, what you used the word, but I think what came to me was I'm okay with being vulnerable now, whereas before I was fearful of it.
That's definitely come through.
Yeah.
That's what I see.
Yeah.
And it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
It's really, really so powerful now.
Mm. Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That's good confirmation. Yeah. And Miko said, oh, it's 12:12 now when sharing that. Isn't that interesting? No coincidences. And Warren, there are so many signs right now. So many signs. Yeah, and synchronicity is happening a lot. Yeah. Just on that vulnerability, Brené Brown has a really good TED talk on it, on the power of vulnerability. But it's quite interesting. It's a little bit like the breadwinner syndrome thing, as in you got to hear it several times, but then you've got to go through it before it actually really hits home. And that's one of the things I think that frustrates me a lot. Well, at least it used to frustrate me a lot in the past, probably still does, is the journey and the learning. You know, like, why the friggin' hell can't we just get it? But it just never seems to work that way. It's always got to hear things 2 or 3 or 4 times. You've got to see things differently. You've got to sit in a pile of bird shit before it really, before it hits home. And I guess there's just no other way. That's the journey. Divine timing, Alex. Yeah, definitely. Divine right timing. Yeah. And true, we do. We get the message when we need it most. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, if no one's got anything else, Grace, I'll hand back to you and or Warren.
Thank you so much, Steve.
Pleasure.
Okay, what we're going to do now, guys, is that Warren has been teaching about Pistis Sophia, those who've been coming to the teachings. So we're going to wrap it up with connecting what Steve has presented this morning with the energy shift, and get Warren to summarize, or if you can just summarize it a little bit, Warren, in regards to what happened to Pistis Sophia, and putting it all together, wrapping it up with connecting all the messages what Steve has shared today, and we'll end it with an activation. So you can unmute yourself, Warren. Ready when you are.
Okay, everyone. So, yeah, look, basically, Steve's different thing about the emotional vibration reminds me of various falls, and it does tie in a little bit to some of the falls that I've been getting came in. I wasn't going to share on it this morning, but it turns out that it is going to be appropriate because it's my second sign now. So I'll just quickly bring up and show you something, and just basically explain about a fall and then do an activation to finish. So let me just share my screen with you. So yeah, this whole Lamentations 2 is a very powerful passage. That, to tell you how powerful this whole passage actually is, there was the guy who taught us a lot of his high level, what's called spiritual warfare and energetic shifting. He actually, trying to think how to best put this, let's just say that when he was revealed this by the Father about how this whole chapter represents a major fall that happened in the heavenlies into this earthly realms to bring us into kind of like a prison planet lower dimension for an ascension. There was a guy who'd come out of Satanism, one of the top 7 in the country, part of the Council of 7, or that basically oversaw the whole program of dark control in Australia. And his exact words to him was, "How on earth did you work that out? We thought we'd silenced every church." So this scripture, along with the whole Pistis Sophia, which is what I've been teaching during the week, talks about the fall of Pistis Sophia. Now, what that actually means in layman's terms is Pistis means faith and Sophia means wisdom. So there was a fall of the sacred feminine, of the daughter of Zion, or Pistis Sophia, basically faith and wisdom, into a lower earthly wisdom. So the whole book of Pistis Sophia was actually a download given by Christ after he resurrected and taught his disciples from ages 33 to 44. So this is something you'd never read about in the Bible, that basically Christ at 33, he was crucified, he resurrected. And if you read, and if you basically listen to what the church teaches you, he stayed around for a bit and then went back. So although he went back, he continued to come back regularly for 11 years to train his disciples in mystery teachings, and showed them about the whole Pistis Sophia, the fall of Pistis Sophia, which was the daughter of Zion, or what's called the sacred feminine, the faith and the wisdom, into a lower earthly wisdom. So what Steve in a way was doing today, simplifying it all, was when he showed that diagram, for example, the different emotional vibrations, like 700 is one, 600 is another. Some of you I know have read the DNA in the Sands of Time book that was written by that guy Justice, John Justice. And he actually talks about how different emotions have different vibrations. And fear, of course, and hate are two very, very low vibrations, what's called low-level fear. So it's interesting that right now what we're dealing with in this final kind of what I call warfare that we're happening, or war, the final war between the sons of light and sons of darkness, which is happening right now, as prophesied in the book of Revelation, the Dead Sea Scrolls and everything else, is that we're dealing with a time right now at final battle, where just as there's signs in the sky and the heavens, and as Jesus said in Luke 21, we'd be seeing signs, and we're seeing violet and magenta. And I was amazed when Steve was sharing that, because I've been seeing a lot of that lately. In the morning, at night, incredible skies. Like, this shows that now there's a beginning of the ascension. And of course, you're going to have forces actively trying to resist it or stop it and stop this basic process of evolution. So Pistis Sophia, when she was cast down, faith and wisdom, the easiest way to put this, I'm trying to take very deep mystery teachings and put it simply, which is not easy. So the easiest way best way I can explain it to you, it's like, imagine being once on a higher level of wisdom, where you're actually directly connected with higher planets, the Arcturians, the Father, the higher councils, and you've got higher wisdom. And when you come into a much lower earthly wisdom, which is a much more limited wisdom. So part of this whole fall was going into almost a prison vibration, a very low dimension, a low wisdom. Now, if you think about the fact that fear and anger and terror would be very low in the spectrum of vibrations compared to, say, love or enlightenment and things like that, can you just imagine that when the government, or when you've got forces putting stuff in the media and trying to hit you with terror day after day, that's what they're trying to do, is lower the vibration of the planet. So hence why it's so important to actually connect with these higher vibrational patterns and energies and do it on a daily matter. And like Steve was actually showing about these whole different things and seeing the signs and the clues, because the signs and the clues are our higher wisdom. The higher wisdom doesn't think logically or linear like we do here on Earth. It's very much a sense or feeling. It's things like Louise seeing rats, having rats in the ceilings. It's Steve having a bird flying around pooping in his house, which everyone else would say he was a fruitcake. But in actual fact, he's seeing the higher signs. And I've been seeing things like this happen so often, like 11:11 when I'm saying something. As an example today, while Steve was running this webinar, I was talking at one stage to a guy I'd known very well. We were talking about this whole change in the planet that's happening. And I was explaining to him, and I said to him that the secret to really, bring this shift is do what the dark are doing. I said the dark know that the spiritual takes control of the financial, which takes control of the government. And the satanic priests or druids take control of the banks and the business owners like Mr. Gates and all these other people, and the telecommunications companies and the internet providers. I mean, they direct the government, and then the government directs the people. And so what do most people do? They run around protesting against this tower, against this 5G, against everything else. So they focus on the physical, political. Then they think, oh, once we got that sorted out, then we can focus on the financial. And then once we got our financial sorted out, we'll focus on the spiritual. So, not surprisingly, humanity gets more and more enslaved and wonders why. And because you're not actually understanding the patterning here. So, it's so important to take command first of the spiritual in your life and in the planet, and then let it move into financial business, because then you can start to direct in business and manifest, and then in terms of government as well. So part of what Steve was showing today with this big fall of Pistis Sophia and of the higher wisdom was keeping you in a lower wisdom and losing our connection with those signs, those senses, those little things that come to us. In the Keys of Enoch and the Pistis Sophia, Pertak explains that pictures and symbols is actually the way of the language of our higher self. And for memory, the stats are something like 7%. I think it's something like this, like, I'll just actually put it on here. Something like 7% is words in communication. And I think something like 58% is pictures, and then the rest is something else. Steve might know better than me on this. It's just other factors. So pictures, so that's basically how our higher self communicates to us, is in pictures. And that's why when we use the codes, because what the codes do is it activates your pineal gland and actually awakens your unconscious. So it's something like this. So yeah, feelings and sensations. So yeah, so basically, these are actually what's happening. So to get ourselves back into those higher vibrations or back into those higher realms, there's a daily thing, a daily meditation, daily. That's what Paul says in Hebrews 10:25. He says, especially as you see the days approaching. So Hebrews 10:25, Paul says, especially as you see the day approaching, to make sure you're connected with one another. In fact, let me kind of not just say on here, but let me show you. So Steve, oral, touch and smell are the others. Yeah, oral, touch and smell. So yeah, exactly. So Hebrews, before I come back to this Lamentations, I'll go here. Then Lamentations, I'll quickly show you, then we'll do a code activation. So what he says is about, in 24, provoke one another to love and good works. And provoke means kind of give each other a bit of shit if we feel we're getting distracted. So consider one another to provoke to love and to good works. But notice what he says here. Don't forsake the assembling of ourselves together, like what we're doing here. Make it a daily, regular, frequent thing. I've noticed people who've really accelerated in their progress are the ones who are literally making this a habit. I know, for example, Grace, Christine speak pretty close to daily. And I know others in you are starting to really do that. And especially, you'll see here, but exhorting one another, in other words, encouraging one another, building each other up, especially as you see the day approaching. What day is that? The day of the Lord, which is that time of the great ascension, that time of the sifting, that time of the judgment, to remove those who've resisted and the lower consciousness and causing the problems, get rid of them all, burn them all up, get them out the way, to create a new higher frequency earth and a new higher frequency people that could actually contribute to the greater good. So realize that that's where this is heading. So if it's not a case, you can't stay in the middle, as Christ said. He said Christ and Belial cannot be compromised or united. Christ and Belial, it's one or the other. So likewise, either you're ascending and you're raising your vibrations and raising your emotional state and loving your enemies and staying in that high state, or you're moving more into chaos, into a lower vibration, into fear, into terror, which will inevitably take you to start resisting higher truth, that will inevitably lead to you, depending on the system, giving up your economic sovereignty, and before you know it, effectively moving into a dark vibration and even becoming a cause of the problem. So how do you not let that happen? Well, part of moving out of that fall and moving back towards source, or in other words, having our vibration raised and lifted and doing what Steve said today, this is it, coming together. So as I'm going to go into the activation now, notice his first words: the Lord has covered the daughter of Zion with a cloud in his anger and cast down from heaven to earth the beauty of Israel. So in other words, he actually cast out of the higher realms into a lower prison earth the beauty of Israel. In other words, Israel means the higher seed, the indigos, the higher Christ seed. Now that's a side that you probably never heard of. people think, well, why would the father do that? Well, if you had your own kids in your own house doing all kinds of nonsense, destroying your place, stealing your money when you're not looking, eventually you're going to kick them out. So, and just another one I'll just highlight here. Her king and her princes are among the Gentiles, but notice this, the law is no more. Rights and freedoms are gone, everyone. Saying that is that we have rights and freedoms, no, you don't. They're gone. You can see that now. It's not hard to observe that. And that is why it's really restoring that freedom within yourself and not relying anymore on the outside. You cannot rely on your rights and freedoms in the outside world. You have to find that freedom within you and within knowing that no matter what happens to your body or your economics, as Christ said, they can't touch the soul or the spirit. That's something that that's a choice. So only you can decide to give over to them by giving yourself to the system. What they do to your economics, what they do to that, they can't touch your soul. In saying that, I have no doubt that as you get your soul and spirit completely strong and in obedience to Christ and into the higher law, you can also see full protection of your body and of your finances and everything. And the prophets find no vision from the Lord. So there you go. So if you think, why are the teachers and the churches and the people who are supposed to be light workers really led me astray? And with all the great spiritual conscious work, and I posted on Facebook 2 days ago, I said, think about it. And this is the simple thing of what I said. I said, we're living in a world where there's so much information and knowledge and opportunity available. Like, it's incredible, especially those of you who are a bit older would know, but 30 years ago, or even 25 years ago, there wasn't an internet. You had to go and physically research in books. You had to physically go, look at books and research. You didn't have mobile phones. You had to go and actually pick up a home phone and ring people. Getting access to information and knowledge was hard. Now, there's plenty of it online. You can just type in Google, like Steve did. Like 25 years ago, Steve was trying to find out metaphysical meaning of birds in the house. He would have had to go and probably looked in the library, gone into catalogue research, could have taken him hours. Whereas now, it was probably a quick Google search and within 5 to 10 minutes had the answers. There's enough spiritual teachers and activations online you can get. There's been churches everywhere, and yet despite every opportunity you could ever want, where are we at today? Less rights than before, more access, more greed, an atrocious financial system. You can see why things have got to where they've got from and why a spiritual awakening. So it starts with that divine order. So going here, spiritual leads to financial, then leads to government reformation change. Whole what's called, so rather than a 5G, you get a 5D Earth. That's what we want. So a 5D Earth. So interesting to think about. So now let's finish off with an activation. So let me see what code. Feeling to go into one of these codes. I think we'll do that one today. Let's do this one. So just focus on this code. It's interesting because I was going to do a different code and I got led to this and I just saw there's green. So Steve, this is going to help you with your heart chakra even more. So just saw there's a. Wow, Grace just says, this feels like we've been trapped but about to be freed. Yeah, absolutely, Grace. So really taking these frequencies, everyone. Really allow, I feel, let this one go into your third eye, but let it go beyond your third eye. Feel it like holographically enveloping you, right through your third eye, right through your whole inner being, your etheric being, going like about a foot beyond your body, about 2 feet beyond your body, and kind of enveloping your whole being so you feel like you're being sucked into it. That's what I'm feeling right now. Let these colors all do their work. The indigo sun, the heart chakra, the higher heart activation, the 9th chakra activation, the 8th chakra, the higher heart, the red, the anger, the terror, the 1st chakra activation, the indigo, purple, magenta, the throat. So all 7 chakras and even the 38 from the 9th, getting a little bit of a taste here, I feel. Allow this just to completely release you. As Grace said, release you completely. I feel it's freeing people up, trapped souls. Releasing souls from past lives, all kinds of things being released, being let go of. A lot of chaos, Grace said. Descend and ascend, yep. Yeah, I feel this is really, it's unraveling something. It's like unraveling a network, I feel it's what it's doing. There's some network that's been over people's third eyes, over their beings. This is unraveling your network. Like a spider's web, satanic network, occultic blocks. Open you up to the higher realms and open your spatial awareness. That's what I'm being told. Very strong sense of the spirit of Elijah, Grace, if you can feel that. Very fast. Feel Elijah is actually present here right now, working here. Very strong sense of the spirit of Elijah. So he's very authoritative. So there's networks being broken and unspanned. It says in Isaiah, he who weaves networks shall be confounded. Isaiah talks about the spider's web being unraveled. Yeah, the chaos starting to settle now. But yeah, there's been druid activity. I'm seeing satanic kind of spells and rituals going on at kind of Stonehenge and other places. And I don't know if it's been happening recently or past lives or in the now, it's just been happening. There's lots of networks right through. And yeah, now I'm seeing it's other lifetimes, it's this time, it's kind of all holographic. They're unraveling these networks like pins, voodoo pins, other things that have been put into people, taking them out of people. Lots of this kind of nonsense is going on. It's a very sophisticated network. There's trapped souls as well, I'm seeing, because of this, that are being caught up, and it's kind of weird. I'm seeing something I didn't even know was possible. I'm seeing souls that somehow they've trapped because they're karmically connected with you from past lives for some people. And then because of that, in a way, you feel partly trapped as well. So it's hard to explain it. And I probably haven't explained it correctly, but I'm actually seeing things being released. There's souls coming out of the ground. There's beings being released. And they're just taking them back. Christ actually said, marvel not, he says in John 5:28, marvel not, for all those who are in the grave shall hear his voice. And some shall come out, some for the resurrection of life and some for the resurrection of damnation. So there's somebody being pulled out now is what I'm seeing. They're releasing souls, releasing them, karmically releasing them, setting them go, releasing the cords and the holes off them, providing further escorts where necessary to send them back to realms justly earned. It's like this very organized, orchestrated process right now. It's Christ, Babaji, Eli, Elijah, Uriel, and they're all just kind of, it's like a systematic herding, like moving quickly. So yeah, everyone's minds are becoming more orderly. Their brain is becoming more integrated. So I'm seeing what it's done. It's caused your minds to be clouded. It's caused some of your spatial awareness to be restricted. That's better, yeah. Okay, it's releasing now. It's released. Just feel the presence of the Father today. Just feel the higher realms here working with you. Actually getting a message from Elijah or from the Father. They're just saying, they don't wish to see you stressing. Just let go. No, it's all coming out of you. All is well. They're doing good things through you. This is a message for someone very specific, Miko, actually. It's all good. They said to tell you, Miko. They're using you and going to do good things through you. It's okay. Just trust was what is a message they're giving you. Very specifically want to talk to you. Saying just trust, let go. It's going to be all right. And the exact words they're saying is, we've got this. Whatever it is that's going on for you, we've got this. We're going to sort this situation out. Is what they're saying to you. Just know, just trust and open your heart and let go. We've got this. In fact, I feel Jesus here now as well. He's saying it to you too. He's more comforting. He's just saying, I've got this. Just here to, the word he's telling me to tell you is shepherd you. Be like a shepherd. Lead you. Guide you. Show you the way. Show you the path. Show you the right way to go. He said he's here. He'll show you. Just listen to him and let him take you forward. He knows what to do and he knows where he's going. So they just keep saying to tell you, rest assured you're in good hands. Nothing to fear, nothing to worry about. And it's okay to cry as well. They're saying also, some of you are feeling insecure about the changes that are going on all around you, in your surroundings, your awareness. It says, okay, the trust, just the trust. They know what's going on. There's a lot of love here right now. I can just feel a lot of love. And if you just tune in and feel it, there's a lot of love. There's a lot of them here, a lot of masters and beings here. Thank you. In fact, they're giving me one more message. There's a scripture where it says, he will gather the lambs in his arms, talking about Christ. He will gather the lambs in his arms. So those of you, especially who know farms and know what it's like to pick up a little lamb and just carry him in your arms and feel his beautiful, soft, fluffy textural wool and how cute it is and how beautiful, you just want to hold him. And that's what Christ is saying. It's in Isaiah. It says, and he gathers the lambs in his arms. And he's saying that for all of you here. That's what he's doing with you, gathering you all in his arms, shepherding you, holding you, showing you the path. There's actually a lot coming through right now. It's quite interesting. A lot of messages of comfort I'm hearing. There must be some people a little bit frightened deep down behind all of what's going on, because I'm hearing a lot of comfort coming through. In fact, I'm getting a message from Jeremiah 31, where he actually says that he will gather lambs, and he says that he will lead his people back from the basically the land of captivity or from slavery. He says, among them, even the blind, the lame, the weak, and the despised, he will bring them back. And he says they will pray as he leads them back and bring you back to a safe place, a place of prosperity, a place of blessing, a place where you feel safe and free from the fear of evil. That's the messages they're giving. Because some of you are very frightened right now. I just want to comfort you, just to trust that they got this. If you are feeling frightened deep down, despite everything else, and if you just know deep on a deep heart level and a soul level, you just really are scared. You know you're strong, you know you're standing well, you're doing good, you know you're going to be okay on your mental level, but deep down within your soul, you're scared. Just type a Y in the text chat. Just type a Y. Nolene, yeah, so anyone else? Yeah, so I'm sure that message about the lambs really would have spoken to you, Nolene. It's interesting, that was the exact analogy he said to say. So you'd understand what I mean about the lambs, and gathering them in his arms, and how you just want to nurture and protect that lamb. Yeah, it's more on a deeper level. Like, just because you can be strong and not afraid on the mind, there can be different levels. You can be afraid on the soul level, then in the etheric level. There's various levels of it. So yeah, Steve, so my guess, my sense is possibly deep in the heart and the soul level. So Miko was until now, yeah, you're being comforted, Miko. So yeah, just allow them just to work on your heart right now. So yeah, Nolene rescued babies on the farm. Well, rest assured, Christ is rescuing you right now, Nolene. He's taking you away from all of this dark stuff and comforting you through and helping you through this. Alex, yeah, there's different levels for different people. Guys generally do find it harder to recognize or acknowledge it, because we're taught that as men it somehow makes us seem weaker. But even Christ, when he was in the Garden of Gethsemane, when he knew he was about to be taken to be crucified, he was scared. He said that to his Father. He said, Father, if there's any way that I would not have to go through this path and go to a cross, let it be so. But not my will, Father, but yours. He was scared. He didn't want to go, because the reality of his path hit him. I've had so much fear over so many years about my path. It's only really lately that I've really been able to release it. And it was by first owning the fear. So this is a spiritual release. I can feel the fear right now. It's just coming out, and the code is dissolving it. Just allow the power of the Son of God, the Holy Ghost, just to clear this. Yeah, Lexi, very grateful. Yeah, so this is a time just to be vulnerable and just allow anything that's still there to be cleared. So just thank you, and I command that all the roots of fear, the deepest ids, the deepest roots, the deepest etheric tears and layers, all be cleared, be released, and be healed by the power of the Son of God. And aham brahmasmi om kriya babaji nama om. I am this I am. Releasing all the roots of fear. So notice I'm not releasing fear, because it's not so much releasing fear. Fear can be a powerful emotion to help you face truth and take action. But release the roots of the fear, so that the fear can be a motivator rather than something that freezes you up. So it's dissolving what I call out of the fear to bring true peace. And Christ said, peace be with you. That's what he said in John 14. Peace be with you. So yeah, I'm still feeling a fear. I feel most of it's released now. There's just still one, could be one more root still being released. So I'm just gonna, any discarnates, disembodied entities or beings still attaching to people, karma is complete, providing a further escort in a pale silver reflector orb, releasing back to source now. And taking the realms justly earned. Whew. Just what I'm doing right now, Christine Evans. Yeah, it's interesting that you said that, because I'm actually seeing like witchcraft and voodoo specifically on you around your heart chakra and around near your third eye. So I'm just literally, I'm exploding the code straight into you just to release it and pull it out. Whoa, that's better. I see the two spots exactly. It was right in your heart chakra and right going into your third eye. Also somewhere near your lips. That's better. I mean, there's some snake or demon there as well, which I'm just going to cast it out now by the power of Christ. Hum brahmasmi. Karma is complete. Just the druid implant being removed. The spear as well, just around that heart and throat, no, not around the throat, the heart, center of the chest, like a breastplate spear. Quite a big one, actually. That's better. Put some blue indigo spear into you. It's like you get a breastplate, like with steel, and it pierce straight through that. You've been very specifically attacked and targeted because of the big work that you're doing and will be doing. That's why. Okay, that's better. I think it's... Now I'm just allowing to go through and repair the etheric layer right now. Putting a golden web of white light and the Holy Spirit just to go through and clear that where it's been pulled out. And seeing the healing balm of Gilead spoken about in Jeremiah 8 to be soothing the soul, being poured upon you now. I can see like oil being poured into your heart, your soul, and just healing all of that. Even into your gallbladder, I'm seeing as well. They're pouring lovely liquid in your gallbladder to heal and release some stuff in there. Around past lives, around bitterness, around druid activity, what's going on. I'm just going to pray the blood of Jesus that washes white as snow over the gallbladder, over this etheric being, and using the words of Zechariah 4 with Jeshua the high priest, where it says, a new turban that's white, that's washed white as snow, a new garment, a new robe that's clean, removing the filthy one. Because I was seeing a picture of Satan at your right hand waiting to accuse you. And it says that in Zechariah. It says that Satan was there waiting to accuse Zechariah or accuse Jeshua the high priest. And all he said was that he was covered basically and washed righteous by the blood of Christ and by a perfect robe of white righteousness. And that's what I see the Father saying here. So he's being pushed aside from you now. He's being pushed out the way, so that accusing voice is no longer there, telling you you're not good enough. This is all happening on the etheric layer, by the way. Thank you. And all pins and needles have been released from that gallbladder in that meridian. And cleansing it now. And I see a lampstand in Zechariah, and in the Bible, a lampstand symbolized a place of authority, or like a church, or like a place of healing. So I see like a lampstand being put in you being put among lampstands, or something around a lampstand, which is just telling me that you're being placed in an office or place of higher authority. In some way, in a spiritual ministry or kind of higher work. That's what I'm feeling. Some way the work you're doing and what you're building and what you're part of. So that's why you're being released, because you are being called into a work of higher authority and spiritual work, and you've felt it. But I see it now, it's starting to be. There was an ancient ritual where people got set apart in the early churches when they were called to the next level, and that's what I'm seeing being done with you now. But it's like you're being set apart now for a higher level work, spiritual work, and a leadership role. That's what I'm actually seeing in some form. So these things happen first in the spiritual etheric realm, and then they come into play in the physical realm, in due process and in due order. But somehow I see you're being set apart for a higher work of spiritual authority and order in a priesthood of some kind. That's the word I'm getting. That's why we're healing you. to make sure you're ready and won't have any hindrance to your work ahead of you and what you're here to do. And the words they're telling me today is just like a fast tracking of the day. They've kind of fast tracked things a bit. Things have happened a little bit quicker than normal. I had no intention of doing any of this. So and I just feel for you, the one message they're saying to say to you is just get to know about the blood of Christ and just every day pray that over you, over your family and over yourself. It's the one thing that Satan cannot touch. And I know that from just about every occultic kind of stuff I've learned, and it's the one thing they can't stand and they fear. The blood of Christ. So every day you can just pray that, speak that, learn about it, understand it. So Grace, I'm going to hand back to you. For you to just conclude or do whatever you feel to do now.
All I sense to do right now is just align all the chakras. And if you can visualize, recall that picture of the love energy in Steve's presentation. Allow your heart to open up. And again, the message today is completely let go. Just surrender. Surrender to spirit. Surrender to source. And just let go. So as you let go, I'll just speak into alignment, alignment, and alignment, taking us into first, second, third, just taking you to all these different levels. Some of you will speed up. Some of you will just feel relaxed, and that's. But know that there is something happening in you, and just breathe. Breathing in and doing the cleansing and integrating that activation, integrating the word that's been shared with us today. And knowing that we are comforted. Know that we've got great friends in high places supporting us. So now I'm just going to put the pyramid on all of us as we go our separate ways. Strengthen your Merkabas. Kia nanamasi, kia nanamashiri. Sia nanamasi, kia nanamashiri. Kia nanamasi, kia nane. And just grounding you to Gaia, Mother Earth. Bring some groundness into your feet. That you integrate all the workings today. Kia nanamasi, kia nanane. Sunaramasi, kia nanamashia nanane. Sunaramasi, kia nanane. And I just want to leave this message. Christ came here and his message is unconditional love, pure and simple, unconditional love. That we also love one another unconditionally. And if there's anything that we need to straighten with one another, just speak out your truth. If there's anything that's triggering you with one another, just speak out your truth. And we have got the good news. Christ is within us. Kia nanamasi, kia. Well, with that, I'm going to leave that, guys, and just give you, again, words of comfort that we have got friends in high places, the Taurians, Palladians, all of the archangels, Holy Spirit, Mother Mary. Everyone is here to support us, and also we've got each other. So with that, I bid you farewell, and you have a great week. We'll see you soon.